2 days of our 8th edition of East Africa's International Conference on Arbitration ends today with a focus on arbitration or dispute resolution, investments and trade relations. Let's get some insights into this from one of the delegate speakers, Kamal Shah of Stevenson Harwood in London. Great to see you, Kamal, in London. Thank you for coming. We appreciate your time. So let's start with the highlights of this two-day conference. I was privileged to be part of the event, by the way, yesterday. I'm obviously one of the panel on investment. But again, give me a sense of about 300 of you around the world and across Africa who were part of it. What are the highlights, by the way?
Well, in a world where everything is virtual, it felt very much like a live event. We had over 350 delegates from 40 countries, all interacting and mingling like a live conference. This was meant to be in the tropical island of Zanzibar, but there we were sitting in our homes and living rooms, talking about the issues of the day, the hot topics of the day, which include topics like virtual hearings in arbitration, control of costs, and these huge damages which some of the arbitrations have attracted, and what governments are doing about these and how to better equip ourselves. There was also a celebration today of the talent by way of awards. So it was all in all a fantastic, immersive experience over 2 days.
I say congratulations to all of you to hold almost a dozen sessions, including an awards, virtually speaking, from 40 countries. I was amazed at the feedback that I've been getting online since yesterday. Quite a good one there. But again, when we talk about arbitration or dispute resolutions, oftentimes it's all about contracts, investments, trade, dispute between the sovereigns or countries and the private sector. So what are the recent trends in this area?
Well, investment treaty arbitration is here to stay. It is growing exponentially, particularly in emerging markets like Africa. So on the one hand, we are seeking investment, whether it's foreign or Pan-African, but on the other hand, we need to be focusing on resolving disputes when they arise. When the investment is made, there will be disputes. We need to equip our judiciary. We need to equip the lawyers in government who are dealing with these disputes so that we are seen as investment destinations to be efficient, fair, free, and that's how we will increase this sort of investment. And also we need to strengthen the way in which we appoint external lawyers as well, the way in which our procurement processes are panning out, so that we put our best foot forward when a dispute happens and the government is on the receiving end of these disputes. It can be done. We have the talent, but we need to put in the resource and the effort to make sure that we are on par with international best practice.
So if we talk about the AFCFTA and the World Trade Organization, how important is arbitration or dispute resolution, competence, skills, the know-how to be part of this very global space of trade and the dispute that often arises across different jurisdictions?
Well, the agreement is absolutely key for Pan-African trade. In a world where there are trade wars, in a world where there are sanctions and a lot of uncertainty. And the implementation of that was unfortunately delayed this year because of the pandemic from July to a later date. The resolution of disputes within the treaty is going to be key. And there are two ways of doing that. One is within a system of a panel, which resolves the disputes between the countries, and another is arbitration. It's early days to see how that's going to work, but the spirit of the agreement is very much there, and the spirit says that disputes will be resolved amicably, and if not, there is a system in place to resolve the disputes. Resolution of disputes is key to every aspect of life, not just investment, and therefore is very important for countries to focus on that. Even though no one wants the dispute, it's a fact of life. They will arise, and they should be dealt with efficiently and fairly.
Are there specific focus discussions on East Africa and why?
Well, I think the reason we are focusing on East Africa is that this event, the East African International Arbitration Conference, started off life 8 years ago, focusing on East Africa. But the issue of arbitration is a Pan-African issue. Today, we have over 70 arbitration centers across Africa. Many countries set up these centers thinking that they will bring in investment and it will increase the fortunes of the country. However, we need to put in more effort into strengthening the capacity, into building up our judiciary and their knowledge of handling arbitrations when there are applications in court, and of course, educating the lawyers and the ultimate users. Many of these centers will fail because we're not putting in enough resources, but those who succeed will see the fruits in years to come. There'll be more investment. The ranking of the countries will go up in the ease of doing business, and overall transparency will increase, therefore increasing investor confidence, whether it's foreign or Pan-African. Nonetheless, it is very important to do all of these things to make it a success.
There's a need for arbitration and dispute resolution mechanism and all of that, but what's the size of Africa's trade, by the way? And currently, most of Africa trades with the Western world and the Chinese and the Asians. But when we start the AfCFTA, they will have to be within the continent. So do you see a change here in terms of how dispute resolutions will go when the AfCFTA finally takes on? Do you think we'll have enough trade to be able to have disputes, by the way?
I think there is a huge scope for Pan-African trade. There is a long overdue need for this agreement to be implemented so that the structures are in place for countries to trade and the barriers to be lifted. And there are, as you know, a number of trading blocs within Africa already with varying degrees of success. The internal market is there, but it has a huge scope to grow further. And having this sort of a structure in place will encourage cross-border trade. Disputes will happen. It's a fact of life. But I think also if you put in the resource upfront now, and governments think about the mechanisms to resolve these disputes, hopefully they will be few and far between. And when they do arise, they're dealt with fairly efficiently and, most importantly, cost effectively, because the cost of disputes can be astronomical, as we have seen from a number of large-scale arbitrations across the continent. And costs need to be managed because resources are finite.
Who should be up to speed? Who should get skilled up? Lawyers who are within the government, or those of you in the private sector? Who needs to be up to speed? Look at Nigeria's and the PNID case at the UK court, for example.
Yeah, the PNID case comes up time and again. It comes up in virtually every single conference. It came up in this conference. And the issue there is it's not just having lawyers trained up. It's the government lawyers who need to be trained up. It's the Attorney General's chambers who need to be skilled. And the way in which external legal services are procured also needs to be strengthened. And so all of this is a partnership between government and the private sector so that we put our best foot forward when we are faced with a dispute like PNID and like many, many others across the continent, so that we are able to either defend or fight the cases as a claimant with the best legal advice and expertise.
Kamal Shah, we thank you so much for your time this evening, bringing us up to speed, and congratulations for the 8th East African Arbitration International Conference. Of course, we'll be on the lookout for how you guys move forward.